What's the fastest you've ever seen a new coworker get fired? I worked at McDonald's in high school. We had a kid take the cash drawer, jump the counter, and run on his first day. The dumbass had fully filled out all his paperwork and everything with his real name and address, though. People like that make me want to look them in the eye and just ask, what was the plan here? New guy had a habit of coming in late for his shift. One day, he came 20 minutes late, sat down, and started to eat his breakfast he brought from home. The foreman was enraged and said, "F this shit, I am done," and called the department chief to deal with him. When he came, the foreman told him, "That guy came 20 minutes late again, and if that wasn't enough, he sits down eating his bread rolls like at home." The new guy protested, said the foreman was totally lying, so the department chief said, "Well, let's hear your side of the story then. What's wrong here?" And, being totally serious, he said, it was a cornspitz. Meaning he had not eaten white bread rolls, but a regional product, which is basically a grain roll that looks like a mini loaf. It's a bit hard to translate as there is no English word to describe it precisely. He basically did not protest that he is coming late and starts having breakfast, but because the foreman said he was eating white bread rolls while he ate a grain product, which is more like black bread. So, the chief of department looked puzzled, but eventually regained composure and went in his office without saying anything to the guy. 15 minutes after that, the guy got a call from his temp agency telling him to go home. Isolated mine in Western Australia, where you need to fly in to get to work. New start on their first day complains about toothache. Our on-site med team don't do dental, so they offered to fly him back to Perth to see a dentist. He accepts and just goes radio silent. No response to calls, texts, or emails. After a couple of weeks, it's assumed that he has abandoned his employment and is formally terminated. A few months later, a supervisor gets an email from him apologizing and explaining that he had to do some time in prison. And can he come back to work? I used to be a supervisor in a factory that employed a lot of unsavory characters. If someone would stop showing up to work, obviously we processed the termination paperwork. But mostly out of curiosity, I would usually ask around. At least if it was a good employee or someone who had been there a while. "Oh, he's serving 60 days. Was a really common reason for folks to stop coming to work. The best one was a guy who was one of our best workers. He stopped coming in to work. Reached out and asked for his job back. We brought him back on. Asked him what was up. "Oh, I did some dumb stuff. I'm out on bail right now." 2 months later, he said, "Hey, my trial is next week. I might be gone for a while." Sure enough, never saw the man again. Looked it up. He had taken a few shots at his baby mama's new boyfriend. Ruined the guy's car, but fortunately no one was hurt. Watched our new receptionist get walked out after 2 hours because she wouldn't stop eating during client meetings. Not like a quiet snack full on crunchy chips and slurping smoothies while people were trying to talk. Her defense was, "I'm a foodie," when HR stepped in. Everyone's a foodie, dumbass. It came for free with your basic survival instincts. 2 hours. A Lithuanian lad was being trained by a black guy. He went to get them both a coffee, came back and said, "There you go, my Nutella brother." While I understand it's not appropriate, it's still pretty funny. My buddy. We work for a big company and eat lunch together regularly in the break room. He will ask me to get him a soda sometimes. A grape soda. I come back and set it down in front of him. He stares at it and says, "What's this shit? Grape? You got me a grape soda? Is it because I'm black?" "It's because I'm black, isn't it?" Everybody around us gets quiet. He thinks it's the funniest shit ever. Oh man. Years ago, I worked for state government. We hired a guy who honestly just gave everybody some really strange vibes. He was a former Marine, and there was just something off about this dude. For example, he would get onto an elevator and he would just stare at you like he wanted to murder you. And he would also never press a button for a floor. You'd ask him whatever floor he wanted, and he would just look at whatever floor you were going to and say, "That's fine." One employee got off the elevator and he just let the door close behind him. Dude just rode the elevator to creep people out? He would also never smile, never cracked jokes. When people introduced themselves to the new guy, he acted annoyed to be talking to them and would just respond with one-word answers. Boot. He ended up getting fired because he would, for the 3 days he was employed, eat lunch by himself in his car. One person sitting in their office witnessed his car move about 6 times from its spot and drive 30 feet to a dumpster and then go park again. This happened every 10 minutes for about an hour. Then at the end of the lunch hour, watch the guy take a piss in the parking lot. Mind you, there are restrooms 40 feet away inside the building. His boss secretly went outside afterwards and looked in the dumpster, and it was filled with beer cans. Dude was fired. Sometime later that night, someone broke into the building and smeared shit all over the public bathroom walls. Needless to say, no one was sorry to see that creep go. I was working for a large corporation, and I had a highly anticipated new hire starting. I went down to security to let him in the building and get him a badge. His first words were, "Wow, your husband let you leave this morning in that skirt?" He's a lucky man. I just looked at the security guard, said, "Never mind," and I went back to my office. I'm absolutely convinced that he just needed an accepted offer letter and had no desire to actually work. A guy came in one afternoon after traveling interstate to us and landing a little before close of business. Fresh new contractor we'd never worked with before with a fairly rare skill set we specialized in. He popped into the office the afternoon before to get his laptop and get set up. He goes back to a hotel and comes in next morning. We had hot desks, but I always got in first and got my preferred desk. He came in super early and was in next. I was pleased as we had a big day. He opens his brand new branded laptop and then heads to the toilet. As soon as he's out of earshot, the laptop starts loudly playing porn. The screen is locked and the volume is right up. In a bit of a panic, I can't get it to shut up. Not the function key shortcut for mute, not the power button, nor closing the lid would silence it. He came back from the toilet and I fired him. He left before anyone else arrived at the office, and I had to explain to a customer that we were going to be late with a resource. I only heard about this as I was working in another office at the time, but a newly hired coworker was fired within his first week for looking at hentai on his work computer. Someone sitting next to him reported him to their manager. The manager came over to confirm, then confronted him. The dude apparently said something like, "But I'm on my break." Like that makes it okay to look at hentai on a work computer in the office around other people. The manager, not knowing what to do at this point, spoke to HR. HR asked to meet with the employee, who explained they thought it was okay because they were on their break. HR essentially explained it was unacceptable behavior and the employee would be let go as they were in a probationary period anyway. Did it end there? That employee then demanded they be cut a check for time worked right there on the spot, and they would not be leaving until they got their money. HR and a member of finance explained that their pay for time worked would be sent to their bank, but the employee began to yell and slam things around demanding their money. HR told them to calm down and leave the office, but they insisted they'd only leave once they had their money. HR called building security, who came up and told that employee they had to go, but again they insisted on staying. Security told them if they didn't leave that the police would be called to remove them. The employee then insisted on staying. Calling security's bluff, they then called the police on the spot, at which point the employee left the office and was never seen again. Bonus note, the hentai they were looking at was My Little Pony based. I let someone go after their first shift when I was managing a brewery. Had a new guy get hired straight to server by one of my assistant managers. Fun fact about me is I firmly believe in leading from the front, so I almost always wore a branded t-shirt, not a button-up or anything fancy. I think the highest paid in a company should be the busiest, so I always bussed tables or did dishes when I didn't have office work. Well, this dude had finished his first shift before I came into work and was at the bar having a beer. It was slammed, so I went behind the bar to help bar back, and the dude started making fun of my sweet baby blue chinos. Bartender tried to hint to him to chill out, and he said something along the lines of, "Oh, it's just the busser." Had his final check waiting for him when he came in for his next shift. If he knew I was the manager and was just one of those people who negged as a way to fit in, I wouldn't have minded. But making fun of the staff you think is below you because you were hired as a server, then having the nerve to only apologize when you realized I was the boss? Nah, that's some slime behavior. First big staff party, 3 days into his employment, he licked the neck of an exec. So close to getting the idea of sucking up, and yet so very far away. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.